Welcome to the first episode of the Twin Tail Studios podcast.
Is it episode 0 or episode 1?
Episode 1.
Episode 1 of the Twin Tail Studio
We've
podcast.
already tested out. Joint Operations podcast was episode 0. So that's actually the first topic.
Season 0.
First of all, I'm Adam Sadler.
I am Brady J. Sadler.
You're still doing the J thing?
I feel like I have to because all my books are going to be... that's going to be a topic in the discussion. So
That's the middle initial.
Not for game design, though. It's my...
Okay. Good to know.
We should talk about that in the... we should resolve that in the actual episode because I think we should have a united moniker for our game designs.
I think they got plenty to talk about in this episode. So those who might not know, we had a podcast for almost half a year.
Almost a full year, I think. Almost.
August was when we started, September? I don't know, something like that. Joint Operations was a podcast we started just because we wanted to talk about game stuff.
Talk about Kill Team.
And just, like it was a hobby. I actually got laid off at that time, so I was like, I needed to do something that's not involved looking for jobs. So we had a podcast going for a while. It was really fun, but we kind of wanted to merge it into this new entity that we have created, and that's kind of like going to be the majority of this episode, I believe, is talking about the Twin Tail Studios.
What is Twin Tail Studios? Jeez.
Yes. Maybe we'll give a little background about, since this is our first episode, and some of you might not have listened to the Joint Operations, they might not be familiar with our background. We'll talk a little bit about where we came from, our experience in game design, why we decided we wanted to make a company.
Yeah, as a preface over this whole episode, there's kind of like a trigger warning, right? Because we're going to have to do a lot of reintroductions here because we're going to assume there's a lot of people coming in and they see like, oh, here's episode 1 of the Twin Tail Studios podcast. I want to see what this is about. I want to see what games they're going to be doing. So this is kind of like an introduction to the company, the studio, us in general. So a lot of this might be kind of... regurgitated for some of you, but hey, apologize. So.
If you know, it's a good refresher. So now you'll know. Now you'll feel like you know us even better. So I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but
in a different way.
Before we get into all that, we typically like to start episodes off with what we've been up to this, since our last recording. This is our first recording. So what have we been up to this week? I would say besides playing Ravenswatch,
too much.
What have you been up to?
Well, me, Brady, I've been working on website stuff because a lot of what I've been doing is getting company stuff ready because we did a lot of, legal filing, the LLC paperwork done, get website stuff organized. So still doing a lot of that. Aside from that, though, I've been working on book 3 of The Malice of Light, which is topical also for later this episode. Really enjoying that, and just getting ready for Gen Con because I've had several book signings.
For those who might not know, what is Malice of Light?
Oh yeah, this is a new thing. The Malice of Light is a high fantasy hexology that I've been working on since I want to say 2023 maybe. Well, that's when I think Acrid Sky came out 2023. So I've been doing like a book a year. 2024 2024 had Weather Roots, the second book. And then out to this year, I was going to release book 3, which I'm working on now. So I'm kind of cutting it close because it's already the year's half over. But I did release a prequel in short order, which is about Ransel Osbury, my favorite character in The Malice of Light. And I can go into more detail about what The Malice of Light is later in this episode because it might become, tangentially related to one of our Twin Tail Studios projects. But yeah, that's what I've been up to, working on that, and that's keeping me busy. So how about you?
It's funny how you didn't even mention one of the most important things we've been working on.
I was going to save it. That was good. It's topical.
So I've actually been spending the last couple weeks working on a new game design. So
you're eating into our content.
I'm not going to talk about the game. I'm not going to talk about the game. That's going to be later.
I did some of that
maybe
too.
Episode 3 or something. But those who may not know me personally or what I've been up to, I was actually I had recently started a new job. When I say recently, it's been almost 4 months or 5 months now, since March. So I was working as a software engineer for a few years, working on iOS apps, and I accepted a job as a software product manager. So I'm not doing engineering anymore. I'm doing product management, which is a change of pace for me, but it also freed up my brain to think about other things and want to build other stuff outside of work. So I was actually working on video game development for a while. I was learning Unreal 5, some Godot, kind of just work on my own video game ideas. And as I was doing that, I was getting a little frustrated because of how long it takes and how many assets you need. And if I wanted to make my own assets, it would take even more of my time. So all my free time was spent in these engines, but I couldn't get the game that I wanted to make done quick enough. And as I was working on that, I had all these ideas for new board games, of course, because that just comes naturally to us. So I was talking to Brady. I was like, you know what? Let's just go ahead and do this idea we've been talking about for so long. Make a game in one of your book settings, because we love making worlds, and he has these books that are just what's what they're looking for, like
collecting dust.
Yeah, I'm just saying, there's just like so many ideas that are ripe for the picking there.
A cesspool. You mean a cesspool, right?
A cesspool of ideas. So basically, just started cranking on this game design. It came together really quick. We actually had our first official play test on the first prototype on yesterday, yeah, and it actually worked better than expected, which is very rare for us. Usually, the first iteration of a prototype is very rough, and it's kind of just like a sketch, and we're stumbling through it. But this one actually, it was hard to stop playing because it was fun. And so very exciting. The game's coming together really quick. So we decided we better capitalize on this, and actually, instead of going to other publishers, let's just do this ourselves, because we've been talking about it for years. We've worked with other publishers and had frustrations in different ways, and we're going to get into that this episode. But let's just go ahead and do the game we want to make the game we want to make our own way, how we want to do it. And so we just decided to jump in with both feet and do that. So that kind of was what the catalyst for all this was, I think.
Yeah, I think this is actually probably the most invigorating project we've done in this regard, because it's like we do a lot of game designs, and I think almost every single one of the games we've ever done, we've been like commissioned. We've been somehow asked to do a game. Like they might.
Yeah, we hardly ever pitched a game idea to somebody.
We never had to. I think I've only done it one or two times, and they were like kind of just shelved ideas from previous things we were working on. I was like, I'll try pitching this, but
I still remember the very first time our very first contract together was when I left FFG, and I told the CEO there that I was like, they had the Warhammer license, and I said I'd love to do a card game, kind of like Death Watch or something, that size of game in Warhammer Quest. And
it's Death Angel.
What did I say?
You said Death Watch, Death Angel. Death Angel's the Space Hulk Death Angel.
But anyway, he took that. I think he took that as to mean that I had a design ready, because he contacted us and commissioned us for it. He's like, "All right, what do you got?" And we're like, "I don't know."
I was thinking of having cards.
so then we had to design something very quickly. We like I said, we never really pitch games to publishers. It's happened before, rarely I think, but typically we get contracted and design this game, with these parameters, go.
Speaking of, like, this is like kind of backpedaling a bit, but what we've been doing, I forgot to mention that we did our first like kind of pre-release for Ransom Creek Remains, our upcoming novel that releases next month. Actually, we'll have some copies at Gen Con, but we went to the Mosey down Main Street in Lafayette, and I had a table set up there. Then Adam was with me, so we were kind of like, selling some early copies of Ransom Creek, so we had some. But some guy came up and was talking about games, because we had our, the display has little miniatures of characters from the fantasy book series and then from the Relic Myers book series, which I can just explain also later on. But some guy came up and was like, "Oh, I'm into games." And
yeah, he thought we were selling miniatures, and I was like, "Oh, that's just for decoration, But we do work on games." And he kind of just brushed that off, saying like, "Oh yeah, these guys just make games." So he started talking about all the games he had, like shelves and shelves of games. And I said, "Well, if you have that many games, you might have actually played some of ours." He's like, "I doubt it." And he just kind of brushed it off because he just assumed that we were kind of like, amateurs or something. I don't know. But he kept going on and on about the games. And I said, "Well, give me an example of a game you like." And he was like, "Oh, I like some sports games." And then the first game he named was Descent 2nd Edition. And I was like laughing. I was like, "Well, that was my first game design." And he was shocked. He's like, I asked for my picture and stuff. He's like, really excited. But it's kind of funny because like that was the one guy that came up to us that just, was interested in games, and he happened to, be a big fan of one of my first game designs.
Yeah, and stuff like that. It's like this kind of a compounded over the course of the last couple of years. I don't know, because we've been out of games for so long, but
it feels like so long, but it's
I say so long because it's like we did
a few years
so long. Yeah, because we were professionally doing it up until 2022, I think it was, so it's not too long ago.
I think you left at the end of 2021,
but the that stuff like that happens, and it's like I think that just happened so much, I kept compounding, and like that one stands out because it was like the week before we decided to just let's start an LLC, let's just do this, and we'll go into the more details about how that all came to be, but that's like that those things happen so often. It's like, why aren't we just we've done so many games, but like the people can't access all of them, and it's like frustrating. So I think that's what drove us away from the whole
I
project.
think that's one of the biggest frustrating things is when I talk to people about, like, I used to, when I talk to people in my current job, I used to design board games for, a job, and they're like, oh, what I want to go check out some of your games. And like, most of them are not available because they were like, Kickstarter only or whatever, like they're discontinued or out of print. So we kind of just wanted to, have control of our own products where we could decide when our games would be available to purchase and when they wouldn't be. So all those reasons to led up to this, but also I think it's important for us to discuss our background about what our experiences were and what led to the point where we decided we didn't want to be in games anymore full time, but then at that time away led us to realize that we just wanted to do it our own way. So I guess was there anything else that we did this week that's important to discuss?
No, I think that we were like 10 minutes in. That's enough banter, I think.
Okay. I'm not timing it. So anyway, where we got our start in tabletop games was, obviously we've been fans, like ever since we were 15, 16 years old, we were really heavy into Warhammer and tabletop games. I think even before that, Brady got a copy of Hero Quest for Christmas one year, very young age.
9 years old?
8, 9, I don't know. But it was like mind-blowing to us. It was like, wow, this is awesome. We had no idea games like this existed with little furniture and little miniatures and stuff.
I didn't know what the genre of fantasy was. To me, it was like, castles and swords and shields and stuff, but like I didn't know what fantasy was, but I knew that I liked it.
Yeah, I still remember we were on campus, and I think Mom took us to the Game Preserve or something, and it was like really dark, and they had all those pewter miniatures on the wall and stuff, and like wizard things. Mom bought you like a metal wizard or something.
That was like a very strong memory. You have those like kind of like keystone memories in your head. There's a term for that, but that's
memory.
Yeah, memory. That's one I keep forgetting because I wanted to like put that in Relic somewhere in the Relic series because it's very one of those things. Like going to pawn shops and getting CDs. That's obviously a big deal. But like going to that game store and seeing Warhammer minis. That's
yeah. And then that one actually led to, I think years later, we played it off and on with our neighborhood friends and neighborhood pals and stuff, but. We were probably 14, 15 when we decided to break it back out again, and we realized that we didn't have enough miniatures to play one of the quests. Like there were not enough mummies or something, because they expect you to have that Return of the Witch Lord expansion. And so we decided this game's probably out of print, but let's go to the game store and see if they have some old copies lying around. We were just naive, thinking that those would just be a common thing sitting in a game store. So we went to the Game Preserve, and of course they didn't have anything. But when we started looking around, and they had like all these Warhammer miniatures, we didn't know what Warhammer was, but the miniatures looked like Hero Quest. We didn't realize that it was because from the same company, Games Workshop, did the miniatures for Hero Quest. But we were like immediately attracted to that, so I bought a unit of like Empire militia miniatures and some paint. We took it home, and we were just immediately started painting things without varnishing, without priming them first, and they looked. I really wish I still had those miniatures because they were terrible.
I don't wish I still had those wood elves that were all the same pose.
Yeah. But that kind of like opened the door to hobby games, and I've been a Warhammer fan ever since then.
What's crazy too, and it's like this comes up a lot. I don't want to jump ahead or anything, but it's like we got into games like very much through Warhammer, and then like I got into professionally doing games through the Warhammer RPG that FFG did. That was my very first like paid writing gig for games. It was a freelance writer for the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, which was that third edition.
That was fourth edition.
Oh, it was fourth edition, which I still have a soft spot for because it was so memorable to me. But that's what got us both into FFG. And you mentioned it before, our first published design together was Warhammer Quest the Adventure card game. It's like it just keeps happening. So.
Well, and plus we started the Joint Operations podcast because of Warhammer 40K Kill Team.
Yeah.
Like, so they were decided to make a new edition with co-op rules. So Warhammer has obviously just been a huge part of our lives. I mean, I think even more so mine than Brady's because I've been obsessed with it for consistently. Brady's always liked it. And he likes when they do things like add Rattlings to Warhammer 40K.
Yeah, I'm like the biggest 40K fan in the world now because they have a Rattling kill team. So,
but I think Brady has a more general love of board games. Like he likes way more board games than I do. So I'm more particular about the board games I like. But all that being said, that led up to that kind of ran like a consistent theme throughout our youth and into our early 20s and stuff like that. We were playing in a fantasy themed heavy metal band called Lauren Guard.
Which you heard during the intro. That was our,
Yes.
that's our
That
hit
was
single, Greenstone. From
That is still a song that I like to jam out to. You can actually listen to Lauren Guard songs on YouTube if you want to check those out. They're all
it's on Spotify, Apple Music.
yeah, you
all
can
that
stream
stuff.
it anywhere. It's actually still one of my favorite albums ever, even though we were involved in it.
It's called Lauren Guard, all one word, and the album is called Eve of Corruption. And there's also a book that you can get off BradyJSadler.com that's the backstory of that album. So
You want a job as a marketing
no, I'm
executive?
bad at it. I'm really bad at it. You can tell. Exhibit A.
Yeah, so and it was a fantasy themed band, and most of the guys in the band are pretty big gamers as well. So like gaming has always been a big part of that. But we went to college late, and Brady went to college for creative writing. I went for art at Purdue.
Whoa, you jumped over failing out at Ball State. That's a really
Why does that matter?
Go ahead.
Okay, so we went to Ball State for a semester after high school because our parents forced us to. But we spent the entire first semester playing Grand Theft Auto in our dorm. And
I took the money we had saved up. You save up some money from doing your part-time jobs in high school. Spent like almost all that money randomly buying a PlayStation 2 and GTA.
was it
3.
an Xbox? I thought
I think it was PlayStation.
Xbox 360, maybe.
Because I think Todd was visiting, our buddy Todd from high school.
Regardless, we didn't go to class enough, and we weren't into it, so we did not last after longer than a semester there. So we took a few years off just playing in bands and stuff, and decided we wanted to go back to school. So we went back to school.
And I'm going to put a little because people this is my job interview story, because whenever I tell a job, like they tell you, how'd you get into what you do? And when I was bumming around working like 20 part-time jobs and scrubbing toilets third shift at Purdue University, cleaning up college kids' vomit and stuff, and like life was pretty like
awesome,
bleak for me. But I was like super passionate, super into fantasy. I was reading a ton of fantasy novels, and like I'd go down to the basement when I'm supposed to be like cleaning out bathrooms, and I'd be just reading like little fantasy novels that I bring my paperbacks. And I saw this sign on the board of one of the offices I was cleaning. It was a list of like majors, because I was in the liberal arts building, and one of them was creative writing. And at that time, I just discovered what reading was. Like I was like 19 years old or 20 years old, whatever it was, and I was like, wow, reading is really cool. So I was reading all these books, and I was like, I want to write, man. I want to be a writer, because I was also writing lyrics for all the bands we were in, and I just loved these bands I listened to that had the stories. So it's funny how like I wouldn't be into games if it wasn't for that weird pivotal moment where I decided like, you know what? I like to create fantasy worlds, so I better be a writer. And it was a kind of a really dumb move, I think, like financially. It's like I'm gonna put some money and go to school and get a creative writing degree.
Yeah. Well, I mean, any degree is better than nothing. So that was our thought. And I went originally for computer science, and I was kind of enjoying that first semester, but then I decided randomly that I wanted to go to fine arts, which I've always regretted, because I was always told I was a good artist. When I was in challenge art in elementary school, and I liked to draw, but I didn't like to do it a lot. And I thought that if I went to college for it, it would make me do it. Like, it would kind of discipline me to do it more. It didn't. Like, everybody kept telling me I was a good illustrator, but I just never wanted to draw because it took too much of my time. And there's other things I wanted to do. So I got a degree that I don't have it really used for anything at all. But Brady graduated a year before me because he was working
2009. Yeah, because I was working I only took 3 years to graduate, because I took summer classes.
Yeah, but you also got in right away because you worked at Purdue.
Yeah,
I had to, since I had that bad rep at Ball State, I had to go to Ivy Tech for a semester to like prove myself, and then I got into Purdue. And I did also take some summer classes, so we both kind of wanted to graduate as quick as possible. So he graduated a year before me, or a semester before me, or something, and he got a job. He was freelance writing for Warhammer. Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay at Fantasy Flight Games.
I wrote for the GM Toolkit, and then I think it was the Winds of Magic, or whatever
And do you want to talk about how you got that job?
Yeah. So I remember here's some great bad advice if you want bad advice to try to get a job. But I would do these things where I didn't know how to like get into games. I thought everyone who worked in games was like kind of just like quirky and like, oh, I'm making games. So like I would email random studios like FFG and say, hey, this probably won't work, but I write stuff, and I'd like to write for games. So LOL, I kind of like really just casual. I wasn't even.
I never knew this. It's embarrassing. I never knew this.
Well, it was more like an email that was like, hey, this might not work. I don't have any experience, but I'll give it a shot, you know. And so it took me like several tries to actually get a response. But when I had my degree and I was ready to start doing it more professionally, I put together like an actual resume. And I remember just randomly sent an email to the editor at Fantasy Flight because they did like an open call out for RPG writers, and they made an announcement about it. And I didn't know at the time, but obviously they did that because they had a new project, and that was not announced yet, but it was the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. And like, I was freaking out because we were big Warhammer Fantasy fans, and like Fantasy Flight at the time, I mean, that was like the only publisher that mattered, you know. This was like before the huge renaissance of board games. I mean,
before Kickstarter.
Yeah. I mean, it was picking up, but it was like, whoops, kick the mic again. But it was like they had, you know, the flagship games like Descent, which got us into
Twilight Imperium, the big box games. They had they had World of Warcraft license, and eventually got the Warhammer license, obviously.
Yeah. So Jay Little, who was the managing roleplay. What do they call that? Like the RPG team, development team. He was like he was the manager of that department. But he took a chance on me. He saw my my background and my writing test, and he gave me a shot. And I got to write on the GM Toolkit book and the whatever the Winds of Magic supplement was. And I did a couple adventure like introductions and stuff. So I did that for like only a couple publications before FFG posted a marketing content coordinator, I think it was called, which is essentially a copywriter at FFG. And again, I blew the interview because I don't recall this because I kind of black out sometimes during interviews.
Because you talk too much.
Because I ramble. But the person interviewing me asked why I wanted the job and everything. And I think I said something along the lines of, well, I want to be a game designer, so this is a good way to get my foot in the door, which they don't want to hear. They want somebody who's like wants to be in marketing, you know. So I blew that interview. But oddly enough, whoever they hired didn't do a great job because they put the job up again, and I applied again, and I apologized if I came off that way, and I said, no, this is what I want to do. So I got that job, and then ironically, a year after having that job, which we can get into how you get the job, but after like a year of working as a marketing content coordinator, they were like, this guy is probably better off in R&D, because I was doing like a lot of promo materials, game design materials for marketing, and I would be the one that people would go to for like game design stuff. I was like, why is this guy not working in game design? So
yeah, and shortly after he got a job there, toward the end of my getting close to graduation, like a month or two before I graduated, there was a associate game producer role posted on their website. And I told Brady, I was like, you gotta give me a recommendation there. And actually, as we were moving you up there, I went with my dad to help Brady move his stuff. I think I might have been moving Sarah up there. I'm not sure, but
probably she moved Sarah.
It was spring break for Purdue, and I went up there, and I emailed the hiring manager saying, hey, I'm in Minnesota right now, so if you're interested in interviewing me, now is a great time. You don't have to fly me out. So they actually set up an interview while I was there, and I interviewed with Corey Kineska and Michael Hurley there, a couple other people, and it went really well. Like, the interview went well, but I didn't hear back for weeks. It was like agony because I interviewed early in the process because they weren't ready for interviews yet. So I didn't hear back. And then like right towards the end of graduation, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. If I had to like get a new apartment, you know, in Lafayette, what I was going to do. And then I got an email when I was at work saying they went with somebody else, and it was like devastating. I was like, oh my God, it was awful. So I got an apartment with my girlfriend at the time, just ready to settle down in Lafayette and figure out what to do next. And then I randomly got an email from the manager saying the person they hired didn't work out, and they want to hire me.
Seems to happen a lot there, I think.
So I had to like get out of my apartment lease and all this stuff, and unfortunately my girlfriend and I broke up at the time. So I was like, all right, I'll just pack up what I have, and I moved to Minnesota. And I was a game producer at Fantasy Flight Games for only a handful of months actually when I was there, because one of my first projects was working on a Twilight Imperium expansion, which was the CEO's baby. Did a good job. They liked what I did. And then I asked my boss, I was like, I see Descent 2nd Edition is on the schedule, and I'm a huge Descent fan. That's why I'm here. Let me be the producer on that game. And she made it happen. And funny enough, there was no designer that was available to work on it. So I just became the lead designer because I was excited about it and I had ideas. So I just ran with it and started doing play tests. And then bam, my name is on the box of Descent Second Edition.
And a fun fact for people who might not know, because I know Descent eventually did this with the digital, like, oh, let's make a full co-op. That was like Adam's very first pitch, was like, this should be full co-op. Nobody wants this one versus many crap, you know?
Yeah, they have these things called vision meetings where they get together with everybody involved and, you know, talk about what the game's going to be. And my first thing was, we should do co-op. And they're like, no, we have to do Overlord stuff. So I tried. But yeah, that was good. And after that was done, I actually got promoted to managing game designer. So I was like managing a team of designers in my, you know, mid-20s or something. I was pretty young in my career. And it was cool. Got to work on some cool projects. Worked on Star Wars X-Wing. Worked on lots of Descent stuff.
Some unpublished stuff that didn't make it, but...
Yeah, I honestly forget a lot of the stuff that I did, but I was doing a lot of managing as well. So I was helping people with projects as opposed to just designing games. And eventually...
I'm the king of footnotes on this episode, but I was just thinking, like, when you mentioned how bummed out you were, like, when you didn't get that, because it's funny how this thing happened, you know, like, you didn't get the job the first time, neither did I the next time you did. But it's like, I remember vividly when I was living in Minnesota alone, because Sarah and I were engaged, but she was finishing out a release at her apartment, so I was living up in Minnesota by myself in this tiny apartment. All I had furniture wise was like an inflatable bed and a little tiny TV and a DVD player at the time that just played Battlestar Galactica, because I just had like one of the discs. So I'd go home after work and I'd just sit in this little empty apartment on my inflatable bed and watch Battlestar Galactica and eat like fast food. And I was like, man, like I have the dream job, but this sucks.
Yeah, I remember being super depressed. I never wanted to be in my apartment because I had this. Once Sarah moved up there, I got your leftover mattress and Battlestar Galactica DVDs, so I was sitting in my tiny apartment. Eventually, I moved into Brady's basement in his house because I was like, I don't want to sit in this apartment by myself. But yeah, I was at the office all the time anyway, so like I had reasons to not go home. Nowadays, it's totally different. I'd never want to leave the house.
Yeah, I think at the threat of just like doing a complete like biography in this episode, we could like skip ahead to like when we started freelancing and like when we really started.
Well, I mean, that's pretty much what I was going to do because, like I said, FFG worked on some stuff, but eventually I decided my daughter was born.
You decided she was born?
Yeah, I decided she was going to be born. And my wife at the time, we decided we wanted to go back to Indianapolis area because all of our families are there. And I was getting a little sick of some of the management style at FFG. And I was like, okay, I want to try something else. So I got a job at as a manager for a Yellow Pages group in Indianapolis.
Emerging media.
Such a dumb move. But it paid good, and it was in a good location. So I took a job there, left FFG, and we didn't last very long when I was there. I was sitting in a cubicle, bored out of my mind. So I was constantly thinking of what to do in games again. I was like, I want to make games again. And then fortunately, the CEO of FFG emailed me and said, hey, let's do that idea you had about Warhammer Quest. And that was like 2015. That was when the game came out. So it was like 2013, 2014 when I got that email. And so that was our first project. Brady moved back shortly after. He moved to the Carmel area.
Yeah, I think it was like summer of 2012, I believe, when I moved back.
And we got our first contract together to work on a game design together. So we started working on that and, nights after work and stuff, for a few months. I'm not sure how long it took, but we submitted that design. Went pretty well. Fast forward to when that game, it took forever to go through approvals, and it changed quite a bit in development. But luckily, we were kind of given information. We were given little updates as things changed. When it released at Gen Con one year, 2015, I think it was. And
did it release or just get announced? I thought it was like just kind of
maybe it was just announced. I'm not sure. But when it came out, it was surprisingly well received. I was like very happy with the reception. Unfortunately, that game had a great release, but then we heard that the license was not going to be renewed or something.
Yeah, like right after it released. Like we were talking about, like we had, because I know they released a couple like POD expansions, like print on demand expansions for just like some cards, but we actually had, like I think it's safe to say now because it wasn't approved or anything, but we had this thing called like Witching Hour, I think it was called. It was like this Witch Hunter expansion with like a cool little adventure planned.
Yeah, and then we had like a POD class deck.
Well, the concept was because they used to do those like little rectangular boxes for like Arkham Horror, those expansions. That was what we were pitching for, like, because it's like the same size as a hero sheet and everything. I was like, we had really cool ideas for how they could do expansions, but yeah, unfortunately the license went down, and that started off the trend of our entire career up to this point of just us getting kind of like, I don't want to use certain language, but it's
we had
bad
games that
luck.
people liked, but people having trouble getting them, or
Yeah.
like them ending before they should have,
or us not getting royalties, not
yeah.
having steady passive income on games.
So like that led to Heroes of Terranoth years later, which we were super excited about because FFG owned that IP. Like they owned that, and so like we could redo that game with something they could actually do. They could actually expand it. Unfortunately, at that time, the philosophy FFG was approaching was like, let's do less expansions, or like selective expansions, and so that one just didn't make the cut for whatever reason. And again, that decided, okay, no more expansions for that one, even though I think it sold really well.
Yeah, I think the higher ups just said, we're like, oh, this is not an LCG, so why are we doing expansions for it?
Yeah. So it's that really sucked because we were excited about that one, and that really took a lot of steam out of our desire to like work with these big publishers, because we just had these cool games that are received really well, but that we just couldn't control when they decided not to expand it or not to support it.
Yeah.
And that kind of led us to wanting to do games full time, being a little bit more in control of product stuff. So we did Walking Dead with Cryptozoic, and through that we made contacts with people, and we got contracted after that to do this game called Street Masters with a company called Blacklist Games,
who at the time we were told was run by someone named Chris, who we hadn't met but had exchanged emails, and we got paid.
Yeah,
it seemed up and up.
Yeah, we everything seemed like, okay, well, we want to do this game. We have everything. We have the art ready to go. We just need a design, and we're like, well, we can do a design pretty easily. And so we're showing sculpts and art and all this stuff, and so like, oh, it's kind of cool. We'll pay you this much, and we're going to kickstart this thing. And we said, well, if it's just a game design, sure, we can do that. We whipped one up, and we actually really enjoyed it. We're like, it was way more fun than we thought it was going to be. Like, this is actually pretty good. So we were excited about it, and we wanted to be more involved. And we said, we'd love to help kickstart this thing and make it the best it could be. And it did pretty good. It funded
for the first one,
it funded, and it delivered. There were a few hiccups, but it actually delivered. We're like, wow, okay, this company,
and it was pretty timely. Like it wasn't like super delayed. It was pretty timely on everything.
So our view of this was, this company can take our designs and make them available to people, and they were produced pretty well. So we're like, okay, cool. They want to do another game. What was the follow up to that one? Was it just the Street Masters Aftershock? Was that the next one we did?
I want to say that for some reason I thought Brook City came out before Aftershock, but I have to double check that. I think maybe. Yeah, I'll have to double check.
Honestly, like I blacked out so much. It was
we blacklisted out so much stuff,
but we did. I think it might have been Aftershock, but I could be wrong. But we did another project with them, and again, it delivered. Yep. And then we did another project like Brook City, and I think we were full time. We did Brook City though.
Maybe
that was our first full time gig.
I want to say that Alter Quest was our first full time gig. Like when we were full time. Okay. Like I think.
Well, between these projects, eventually Blacklist was happy with working with us, and they said, "Hey, we want to hire you full time.
Yeah, we can provide you a salary." And the way we looked at it was like kind of on the books. It was like we're on retainer, so it's like we could quit our jobs and safely have these paychecks coming in because we're like on retainer. So at the time, we were under the assumption that we did not want to handle business stuff.
Well, we were also told that we wouldn't be involved in that kind of stuff.
Right,
we would just be.
Well, that's why it seemed appealing, because we didn't think we wanted that. We thought, well, yeah, we are good at creative stuff. We don't want to be involved in business stuff. It seems like something we have to learn. I'll jump ahead, 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it's been. We want very much to do that stuff because of obvious reasons. But
yeah, people might think we're naive or something, but we're not. We knew what we would like to do, and we got an offer of, hey, we're going to pay you this decent salary, which basically is the equivalent of what you're doing at your day jobs, and you can work from home and you can work with each other and make games, and that's what we wanted to do. And so, like, okay, great. And it's from a company who has delivered on
several projects,
promises. We might have been lied to about certain things, but what we saw was like our games were being produced, manufactured, fulfilled.
Yeah. So that whole stretch, which was a few years. I mean, we worked the Blacklist for a few years, several projects before it started falling apart, and obviously we backed off as much as possible.
Well, before it started falling apart, like things were going so well that we were being pushed into more front-facing roles at the company.
Yeah,
of like,
and because the company was so successful, we were expected to know certain business things for some random partners or something. We would be approached and talked to, and we couldn't answer things. So like there's a bottleneck there because we can't make decisions. We have no business.
And we did approach our boss and said, hey, we want to be more involved in these certain things, but it never went anywhere. It was just like, okay, well, what do you call it when you're just you're placating somebody, saying, yeah, we'll talk about that, whatever. Yeah. But eventually we started seeing these issues pop up where, so on some early projects, I think it was Alter Quest or something, backers were getting panicked about things not being updated or not knowing where things were, but we knew things were in the process, and then they eventually got resolved. It's like, okay, well, it's a common thing where people just freak out. Backers are not on the inside, so they might get panicked about what's going on with the project. And we have definitely in the past, and like when we did these live streams, we would talk to people, and we would just brush off these concerns, saying this is part of the process. We've been through this before. Don't worry. And people thought we were just like gaslighting them or ignoring them, and we weren't. We were being lied to ourselves, and we thought everything was fine. For example, with the Fantasy Series 1 was supposed to be delivered, and there was a big delay about that. That was where the real red flags started showing up, where it's like, okay, well, these products are supposed to be delivered. They're supposed to be the fulfillment company, but they're not, and nobody knows where they are, and we don't know. Like, we were just being told that there's delays, and we don't have communication with the factory. We can't talk to the fulfillment company, so we're kind of in the dark ourselves. Yeah, but we're expected to like put on a good show for the company's telling us to put on a good show for them, and
to provide reassurances and stuff. And you can kind of see like from a high level, you might be able to see why maybe we needed to take a break from from being involved in games.
I will say people think we might be thin-skinned, but I feel like we're pretty used to criticism. Like if you're making creative stuff, like even back to when we did Lorengard, we had to listen to people criticizing our music and stuff like that. We're pretty used to criticism and stuff like that. But it started getting personal with Blacklist. People would we were actually preparing. I was waking up in the morning to go to my grandma's funeral, and I had some guy messaging me on Facebook telling me I'm a criminal and that my kids should be ashamed of me. Like really nasty stuff. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, I have nothing to do with this. Like I was to the point where I didn't want to be involved with the games industry because I was so disgusted with how I was being treated.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the kind of the perception you get, because you don't get a lot of messages from people saying like, "Hey, I love your games." They just want to go enjoy their games, so they're fine. You just get these messages from people who are like, they're sitting on this anger and they have no way to channel it, and there's frustrations and confusions. And it's funny because like we probably share the same frustrations and confusions. Like we're on the same page here, man. We're both annoyed. And
I do think it was also I think a lot of people took personal offense to how we brushed off, or we did the live stream and stuff like that. We did not take them seriously, their concerns, because in our minds they weren't justified, but we were wrong. Clearly we were wrong. They were valid concerns, and we should have pressed harder to look into it. But
hindsight's always 20/20.
Again, when you have a job and you're supporting your family, you're not looking for ways to rock the boat and get fired, even if it's going to affect your I don't know, your reputation or whatever. Your first instinct is to, I have to support my family and have a paycheck. Unfortunately, that's just the world we live in with capitalism and everything.
Yeah, and I think people also need to understand too. It's for example, we speak kind of vaguely in these terms because we're not going to come out here and we're not going to be throwing names out and saying, so and so and tossing blame. Because first off, Adam and I, we really try to give people the benefit of the doubt. We try to make sure we understand why people do what they do and why things might happen, and we don't want to just jump to conclusions and stuff. But also we have things that we still want to work out. We still want to figure ways out to maybe resolve some issues. And
a good example of that is with Steamforged Games. They bought Street Masters from Blacklist, and they worked with us to produce an expansion and make sure that people got their stuff, and they did it. That's one of the things that actually motivated us to want to do more with games, because we want people to have our games. We don't, we didn't get into games to get rich. There's other ways to make money in the world, and tabletop games is you can do it, obviously, but that's just not the big motivation.
Yeah, it's almost easier just to go gamble or do the lottery or something.
Like the whole Lasting Tales thing was an idea I came to the company because I thought it was a great product that I wanted in the market. I was really into Frostgrave at the time, and I just wanted board game quality miniatures. I don't have to assemble. I just got a big box of generic fantasy stuff. That's what I wanted, and I thought it was an awesome product, and that's what the whole point was. I had no idea it was going to blow up to what it did. And honestly, it could have been a spectacular game line if it was managed by a different company. So
yeah, and hopefully I'm not. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm also, another thing was that Fantasy Series 2 was picked up by, was it Wildspire?
Wildspire, yeah.
And they funded, hopefully that's going to be delivered too, because that people need to get their stuff. And all that being said, like, it pushed us out. And Blacklist is the reason why I personally left the industry in 2022. And I went to a software development boot camp when I saw the Blacklist was going down the drain. I was like, I got to do something else. So I went to go study coding. I got a job with a startup making apps, did that for a couple years until I got laid off. Then I decided to move into product management, which I'm right now. But during that time, I think people who listen to the Joint Operations podcast know that Brady and I play games all the time, and we always have ideas for games. And they're always ideas because we don't have the motivation to, like, we don't have a contract that's like, hey, get this game done. But now it's like we have this game we want to make, but we decided if we want to make this game, make it happen, we just need to make a company, and that'll kind of light a fire under us and be like, we have to do this because we are our own contract, basically. We are going to make this game happen. That's kind of where we are now.
Yeah, I think what changed for me a lot, like during this kind of off time, I would call it, because after leaving Blacklist, I just got a job. Well, at first I went to Lucky Duck to try to see if I could, do games somewhere else. But like that was kind of just on my own, and it was kind of a weird circumstance where I had to take a bit of a pay cut, and I had to fly to Poland several times, and I had to, do my first big game design on my own as opposed to co-design with Adam, and the big one was too, like, it's an app driven environment, because like Lucky Duck is a digital hybrid board game company, and while I loved working with the people there and the company was really cool and they had cool ideas, it just didn't really mesh well with me because I just personally could not really get into that whole mindset of like designing for a digital side, because I don't really enjoy playing digital hybrid games. I like video games and I like board games, but I don't really always love the digital hybrid aspect. So anyway, like Lucky Duck didn't pan out for me, so I went to work in corporate travel, which is where I'm at now. I just work as a proposal writer. But I've been very busy on the writing side, so I've replaced my creative outlet through games with going back to my first love, which was writing books. So I've since published like 8 books. Well, I think Ransom Creek Remains will be my 8th book, our first book, my 8th book, and doing that, like running my own, like independently publishing my stuff, treating it kind of like its own company, where I'm doing events, I'm commissioning artists, I'm doing all these things that I'd be doing for board games, so like that kind of snapped something in my head this year where I was doing so many books and I was commissioning so many things and I was doing freelance side gigs to help fund that. It was like, why don't we just do games, and that was another reason why I turned around on this whole like being involved in business side of things. I already am. I'm already doing it. I'm already like running an LLC. So it's like, why not just do this a step up, bring us both in, we'll both do it together, and we can actually have a house for all of our things. And
yeah, 2 things on that. Like that actually, doing like budgets and working with manufacturers and artists like that, that's how I started in board games. Like as a game producer, that's what I was doing, was I was putting together budgets, talking to the manufacturer, getting quotes, getting art commissioned, giving artists feedback, all that stuff, planning. Like, and we did that at Blacklist as well. We did art descriptions. We did everything that we could do internally. We didn't get to work with the factory, the logistics and stuff, but we did all the. We chose what products we would do. We would plan them out. We would design them, develop them, playtest them, all that stuff. So all those things we've had experience with. So like it makes sense for us to just do something on our own. We have all the tools for it. And I think also that Ransom Creek Remains book, when we decided to collaborate on that one, I'm not nearly the prolific writer Brady is, but I have ideas for stories and things like that. And I can write, but he really drove that project, but it being collaborate on that kind of made us, it kind of reminded us of what it was like to collaborate on board games, and like we could do more than just what we have been doing. We have the time and we have the tools, so let's just do something productive and put games out there that we want out in the world. And I think people would actually, there's probably a lot of people that actually like them as well. just based on reception of our old games.
Yeah, and still, like, I still stay involved in a lot of these smaller communities within board games. Like, there's these, podcast content creators, and they have Discords, and I try to stay active in those. So people still ask, hey, we guys have any games? So it's very exciting to be able to say, yeah, we are, and have something to show for it. So here we are.
And all that's basically where we are now, and that kind of leads us into what is Twin Tail Studios. This is a new company that we just formed like last week. We just put the paperwork in. We are setting up a bank account this week, just doing all the business stuff.
The website is live, twintailstudios.com. So.
And it is just us. Like, it is a 2-person LLC. Me and Brady partners. We are in charge of it. So we are not going to be like, oh, I don't know. We will answer questions for people because we are the ones who know. Like,
yeah, you'll see a very what do you call it? Like,
transparent.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying like a very dedicated what do you call that when you're pushing for something?
Effort.
Yeah, the effort's probably what I'm thinking of. Like, you'll a dedicated. Effort. No, that's whatever. I can't think of the term right now.
He's not good with words.
I'm not good with words, but like we're going to be very upfront, very transparent as much as possible. Short of showing you our bank records and stuff, like, we'll be able to show a lot more because this, like Adam said, we have a company that is just us. We're co-owners.
Unlike Blacklist Games, when we have a Kickstarter fund a Game Found or whatever crowdfunding project we have, and it's being delivered on boats, we will give you the boat names. We're not going to hide that stuff from people. We will tell you what boats they're on.
Yeah, you won't hear a bunch of excuses like, oh, so and so. So like that's one thing that you can count on from this, because we want to be transparent, because we want to show this is what we would have done if we had control, and now we do have control. So now you'll see how we can do it.
Yeah. And there are going to be lots. I don't know how about lots, but there are going to be very vocal people who sound like trolls because they're
playing the role of a troll.
Yes, they're going to sound like trolls because of just in the past. It's like people have just accused us of all kinds of stuff, like scum, villainy, criminal, like stealing money, stuff like that. I mean, if we stole money, we wouldn't need to do anything. We wouldn't have jobs. So, but anyway, like the point is, we want people to judge us from our publishing capabilities. From this point, this is our company. Like, this is something we have control over. We're making the decisions. And that being said, one of the first projects we're doing is very exciting. We are working on a new game, which we mentioned earlier, a new game design. I don't think we're going to say the name just yet. It's not a big surprise, but do you want to say the name, or do you want to save it for the reveal? I think we should probably save it for the reveal. But if it's not, and if we don't have the reveal very soon, we'll talk about it more in the next episode. But
I could probably say what I said in the Discord on the one-top co-op shop when someone said, "Oh, what are you guys doing? What are working on? What'd you play test?" And I said, "It's a fantasy-themed cooperative roguelike board game."
Yes,
with minis.
And I just said on BGG that it's heavily inspired by Warhammer Quest and Heroes of Terranoth.
So we'll get more specific than that, but
you can take that and think about, stew on it, and see what kind of a Sadler game you can imagine. And that's another thing too, is we want to be able to talk about things when we want to talk about them. We don't want to worry about what's the publisher going to say if we reveal too much information, whatever. So it is a game, and we have partnered with industry veterans. 2 in particular that we've worked with in the past. I've known one of them for 20 years now, which we're talking about. We thought it was crazy, but
I think we kind of both know them for both of them. I think.
I'm pretty sure I've met with the other one. So Tom Mason is the first one. I worked with Tom Mason when I was in college. He was a graphic designer at the Mega Brands of the company I worked with, and him and I actually worked together on my first game design ever, which was Avatar, the board game, which was based off of the movie, the Blue People Avatar.
Tom was like a celebrity to us, because I remember vividly when you first introduced me to him, it was like, dude, he has sculpted Batman.
Yeah, he sculpted
heroes.
He sculpted a HeroClix miniature, and he also had a bunch of Reaper miniatures. But he's been a sculptor, a very prolific sculptor for several years. He worked with MegaCon Games on the Mercs line. I think he basically came up with those Mercs, the initial Merc sculpts, so that he kind of defined that style. He has some some cool goblins out right now. This he did a goblin Kickstarter for these little goblin miniatures, and he has a new one coming up pretty soon. I think
he's had several good, like, well-funded crowdfunding.
Yeah, he had
campaigns.
like sci-fi stuff. I forget what they were called, but he's a fantastic sculptor and a very good friend, and he is partnering with us on this project to lend his sculpting expertise. So you're gonna this game is gonna have some awesome sculpts, and also the other person we partnered with is Chris Doman, who we worked with extensively at Blacklist. He was a freelance graphic designer, but he did the graphics for Street Masters. He did the graphics for Brook City.
And all the Street Masters expansions, like Aftershock and all that stuff.
And then Buddy Cop, I think. Lots of Blacklist products. I mean, the majority of Blacklist products were his graphics. I think the only one, Alter Quest and Hour of Need, were when Justin was working there, Justin Lucas, he did those. But yeah, Chris Doman, he's going to be our graphic design expert.
Did he do MegaCon also? MegaCon's graphic design?
He might have. He still does lots of board game graphic design. Like
he works with someone named Lost Boys, I think, Entertainment or something. They do a lot of games. I haven't looked into him, but he keeps himself busy. He's a very, very talented graphic designer. I love his style. He's really good to collaborate with. So.
Yep, and just to make it clear, we're not like hiring them as freelancers or whatever. They're actually interested in helping build this game, like, as you know, having some kind of ownership in the game. So they are going to be working with us to make a really, really awesome looking board game, and Bray and I will make sure it plays really well. So that's kind of what we are doing for our first project. And we're going to have like an official press release very soon with more details and hopefully like
some imagery, the
name of the product, so we can kind of get some images going around. I think we have cover art coming pretty soon.
Yep.
So once we get the cover art and the logo, we'll get the press release ready to go and get the word out there. If you are listening to this and you're interested, feel free to spread the word to your friends. Show them, give them a link to the podcast. We do have a Discord, so we had a Joint Operations podcast Discord that had like a handful of people, but we started one for Twin Tail Studios, and we will probably put a link on the Facebook page. We also have a Facebook page and a website.
The website has a link to the Discord. So if you go to the twintailstudios.com, like the bottom of the page, there's like a link to our socials, like Facebook, Instagram, and then Discord. There's an invite there. There's also a link to there's a podcast page for all the different places you can subscribe to the podcast. We'll have more content on the website, obviously, as we get it, but it's just right now it's just a landing site because we needed something there for capturing attention.
Yeah, and one thing we did do in the Joint Operations Discord is we had people who listen could put questions we would answer in episodes. So we have a podcast channel in the Discord. So if you ever have questions you want us to ask or answer in the podcast, feel free to drop them in there. We did have a couple from the Joint Operations which we could answer. One of them was, what type of board games or game mechanics do you guys hate?
One versus many.
Yeah, actually that is for me. One versus many is definitely one that I do not like. So.
I think I don't like trader mechanics usually. Like there are some that do it okay. Like I like Betrayal on House of the Hill is light enough where I can play that and enjoy it. And I think the trader stuff in Battlestar was interesting. I just don't gravitate toward that stuff. I'm trying to think of other because mechanics are so. It all depends on how it's incorporated with the theme and the rest of the game, because some games will have mechanics I like, but not in that game because they don't belong there, So.
I hate meta mechanics or whatever you call them, where they're like stack 7 dice and the first
stuff.
person who makes a funny face does this. I don't like that stuff.
Yeah. I don't like to have fun, man. Don't try to make me have fun.
Keep it in the rules, man. And the other one was if any of the Malice or Relic games take off, would you consider starting your own company?
No, never. No.
Well, to answer that one, actually, I was going to say we will answer that. That's kind of the reason we started this company, is because we did not want to tie up any kind of worlds we create with a publisher.
Yeah, I've always, because that was another thing too that came up when I was doing Lucky Duck, because I'm not sure how much I've talked about this publicly, but part of the project I was working on Lucky Duck was a Malice of Light game. We were going to do a game based on my book series. So the idea of that was cool, but it kind of complicates matters because it's like they almost have to license it from me, but because I'm self-published, it's kind of tricky because I don't have a publisher to go to. There's not a licensing department. So this kind of just streamlines that, because anything I publish we can just use because I'm part of this company. So this company is like working with me, and we can control all this IP. So this is just an easier way to do it. And also, it's just something that's like I want full control. That's why I went to self-publishing and didn't try to get traditional publishers, because I don't want to make concessions and like try to appease a literary agent, all these different things. I mean, someday maybe, obviously, if I find the right one. But I just love to create. I just want to keep creating and not having these barriers. So that's kind of what lent another reason to do this, because we can just do any game we want based on the books that we write. Like for example, we could do like a Ransom Creek Remains game, and like we wouldn't have to worry about any like licensing approvals and stuff. We just make all the decisions. So very exciting to think about.
Yeah, and we also are discussing like doing like video stream with our podcast, like doing video podcasts. So like we would take video of ourselves while we're doing a podcast.
Like because I mean almost all podcast, like big podcasts, do like Conan and stuff like that. I'm not sure if there's a term for it, but
a video feed. I don't know.
We'll have video-fied podcasts.
So once we get this, like our budget figured out for the game and all that stuff. I should have mentioned also part of the press release will include these details, but the game we're planning on taking it to GameFound as our first project. I've been wanting to use GameFound for a long time.
Love GameFound.
I really do like it. We've been involved with projects on GameFound. I believe the Steamforge Street Masters was on GameFound, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. So, but we haven't actually run one ourselves. Heck, I mean, I don't think we've ever run. Well, we ran a Kickstarter for your book once.
Yeah, at one time.
But yeah, that'll be cool because we'll have full control over that, which is going to be awesome.
That's another exciting part too, is because the studio it encompasses both games and books. So if we were to do like a game, let's say we did a game on Ransom Creek Remains, we could do like a game with the book, and you could get it all together. And so we can publish books under this umbrella. So.
Yeah, and the cool thing is the books that Brady has published and continue to publish are available immediately. So like they're print on demand through Amazon. So like when we're doing this GameFound, if people want to check out the world and learn more about it, you want him clawing your drums.
You can't really get through them, but
his cat was clawing his electronic drums.
Snare drum.
But yeah, if people want to learn more about the books during the campaign, they can go and just buy the book on Amazon and check it out. But we have the opportunity to like do really fancy prints of the book and do mass production for retail or whatever.
You're talking about books. We didn't say what this is based on. We didn't get that far.
You did. You said it was a fantasy.
I didn't. Yes, I said fantasy. But now, since you got the cat out of the bag, we should say that this game is going to be based. I was talking about the Lucky Duck thing, but I didn't say our game. The Twin Tail Studios, our first game, will be based in the Malice of Light. So
yes,
that's.
But you said in the Discord for One Shot Stop Cops, you said fantasy.
I said fantasy, but I didn't say
that's your fantasy series.
But we didn't say
big surprise. Our game's gonna be set in Brady's book.
I was just saying, like I think it's fun to talk about, but I thought I shouldn't because you were like being.
No, I just meant like the official name of it.
I get it.
So hopefully we'll be revealing that pretty soon. Hopefully you guys all have a good idea about where we come from, what our mission statement is. My wife was telling me that earlier this morning. So you guys should have a company mission statement.
It is. I have it on the about page.
Yeah.
Identical.
Yeah. I know.
What is it? We have an identical focus.
Memorize that mission statement. Basically, we want a way to make our creations available to everybody, and we want to have control over that, and we also want to be able to communicate what we want to communicate to people about our creations.
And I want David Lockwood from Next Tabletop to localize it all for us.
Yeah. So. Congratulations, David. All these new businesses starting this week. So, I think that's is that an hour?
We're at 57 minutes, so it was a pretty good time filler of talking about ourselves for too long. So
hopefully it wasn't too boring.
Next episode, we'll talk about a game or two. Oh, we have a few minutes. Do you talk about any games we've played or anything? Because I was
besides Raven's Watch.
Well, yeah, Raven's Watch is great. I mean, that goes into like our game design, but
we'll get more into the game design later.
I do want to briefly mention Stalker. Which I'm not sure what it stands for. You called me a stalker.
Do you look like a stalker?
Stalker from Awakened Realms. Really making me just love that company. Like I've played a few Awakened Realms games before. I've played the Alien One Nemesis, was pretty cool. Don't have a copy of it anymore, but I got Stalker. Played it twice. I tried the zone exploration mode, but I played the campaign with Adam and our game group, which is Rob and Mitch, and man, loved it. Thought it was really. I mean, it's a the terrain stuff.
Yeah,
a little tricky,
it feels like a cleaned up version of that old game we used to play, Earth Reborn, that really tactical game.
Yeah, but actually co-op. So, but
was that game? That game wasn't co-op.
No,
it was
a
battle game.
Yeah, you had like teams, and that was the hardest part. Was like you had to build the teams. You had like your radio transmissions and stuff, and that was
so complicated.
But anyway, yeah, like Stalkers is really cool. So far, I'm digging it. It's a tight table hog, and it's like a bit set up and everything, but I'm excited to try more because it is a cool product.
I'm excited for them to deliver Lands of Evershade.
So. Yeah, that's my holy grail right now. I always got one game on the radar that's like, oh, I want that so bad, and I can't stop thinking about it, and that's Lands of Evershade. So that's what we've been playing. But yeah, next episode we'll dig in deeper and talk about our next game and more plans. Hopefully we'll have some.
We'll try to come up with a nice little format for this podcast so we have structured topics to discuss.
Yeah, but if you hear this, join the Discord. Drop all of your questions because we could spend an hour answering questions too. If you have,
I guess one thing we should mention is that while we plan for this to be like a bi-weekly podcast, where every 2 weeks maybe, but we're not sure about this specific schedule yet. So bear with us while we figure that out.
It kind of depends too on like how much. If there's a lot of engagement and a lot of questions, we'd be happy to try to make it work. Or we can do weekly.
But if we have stuff to talk about, we can do weekly. But I feel like we don't want to burn out our content too quickly. So,
and I got to go because my cat's eating a trash bag. So,
all right. Thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you next episode.
See ya.